In this exciting modern era, we keep learning things that it never even occurred to us to actually wonder about. For example, it turns out that if you appoint a wholly unqualified television host to be, shall we say, the head of your armed forces, well, it's quite likely he will not be fully respected in that position by all the generals and other senior officers. I know, who could ever have anticipated such an outcome? Well, possibly anyone who a month or so ago listened to the speech by Pete Hegseth when he controversially gathered all the senior military officers of the United States into one room to lecture them about being too fat. If you recall, the 800 assembled leaders kept quiet and stony-faced during the speeches by Hegseth and Trump, as they felt was traditional for the military in the face of political speeches, but this week, some of the private responses have been coming out. The conservative-leaning Washington Times took time off from stories about loony lefties go loco over Trump building a ballroom to report senior officers telling how he lost us. Among the reasons why the top generals are not impressed, Hegseth's unprofessional public grandstanding, his evident lack of seriousness and fitness for the task, and various personnel decisions in the name of being anti-woke, amongst other things, that are leading to, quote, an unprecedented and dangerous exodus of talent from the Pentagon. One current Army general said about the big speech in Virginia, it was a massive waste of time. If he ever had us, he lost us. Another senior officer said this, mainly what I see from him are not serious things. It's, why did this service member tweet this? Or internal politics and drama. That's mostly what I see. It's worth recalling that during his speech to the generals, he told them that he rather expected that his pontificating about the warrior ethos and the woke mistakes of the past, that was going to fill their hearts with joy. But if it didn't, he said, well, they should do the honourable thing and resign. Seems that some of them are choosing to do just that, while others are keeping on, in the spirit of doing everything they can to keep high standards in the face of the cluelessness at the top. One thing this isn't is the merit-based culture that Hegseth promised. Merit is largely what is heading for the door, while slavish loyalty comes in the other direction. For the MAGA crew, that's invisible, because what they can point to is that the posturing plays well with some of the would-be raw recruits. Hence the uptick in military recruiting since Trump's election. Whether the professionalism of the armed forces is enhanced by an injection of people who are specifically enamoured of a commander-in-chief who wants to use them to put down internal protests, well, that's another question altogether. Defence industry sources told the Washington Times that Hegseth is doing deep damage to the military in multiple ways that may not become fully apparent until months or indeed years from now. One senior officer said, across the services we are bleeding talent, talented generals and flag officers for what appears to be the opposite of a meritocracy. Now that doesn't mean that none of the spirit of what Hegseth said didn't resonate, for instance calling for higher fitness standards in the forces, but the actions behind the words is reportedly widely seen as unprofessional. And a large part of that is all to do with Hegseth's public posturing. The theatre of it all is below our institution. Several of these changes are being made already by the services, and they could be made by any secretary. They don't have to be announced on stage in public in this grandstanding kind of way. Which then leads him to the punchline. It seems like it's all about one guy here. A comment reinforced by another source who said that Hegseth seemed to be viewing the job through the lens of a junior officer, leading him to fixate on issues that should be left to those well below his rank. In Virginia, the generals had been expecting to hear about a major new strategic initiative or some similarly important announcement. Not about effing haircuts. All these comments were made anonymously for obvious reasons. Sean Parnell, the chief Pentagon spokesman, raged at them. The anonymous general and senior officer quoted in your article should put their names to their comments if that's what they truly believe in and consider resigning from their post. Our warriors deserve senior leaders who support the mission and put warfighting first. And what's more, he might have added, how dare the Washington Times, conservative outlet as it is, repeat such comments anyway? Which is precisely the sort of thing that Pete Hegseth's new rules on journalists is supposed to prevent. These are the rules that ejected all reporters from the Pentagon press pool if they didn't sign a statement declaring that they would never report information from anonymous sources or anything that hadn't indeed been approved by the Pentagon leadership. Which is kind of the whole point of journalism. So, unsurprisingly, none of the professional media outlets, including the Washington Times, Fox News, Hegseth's former employer, and many others, they refused to sign. Leaving Sean Parnell to announce the brand new spanking Pentagon-approved press pool made up of pretty marginal outlets such as the Gateway Pundit, the National Pulse, Lindell TV, along with influencer Tim Pool and the Washington Reporter Substack. Here's a quote from the editorial of the latter, under the heading, "The Department of War's media guidelines are common sense, and we are signing them. Why should far-left journalists be permitted full access if they won't commit to basic precautions? Fox News, New York Post, Washington Times, damn all you far-lefties." Then, having insisted they're committed to tough reporting, they say this: at the heart of this stands Secretary Hegseth, whose tenure has been nothing short of transformative. He has solved the terrible Biden recruiting crisis that was a ticking time bomb for our national security. Secretary Hegseth has boosted active duty numbers by 15% in less than a year. Americans are excited to serve again because they see real leadership, not the dog-costumed leadership running DOD under President Joe Biden. And after more similarly tough-minded sycophancy, it continued like this: the Washington Reporter and every American should be profoundly thankful for the Department of War's steady hand under Hegseth. His leadership has not only fortified our military, but also restored public trust in its mission. These media guidelines, far from stifling discourse, enable responsible journalism by fostering mutual respect between the press and the Pentagon. Vladimir Putin couldn't have put it better himself. Indeed, he probably would have told them to tone it down a bit. This is what the media would look like under autocracy. And at least America can take some comfort from the fact that even the right-leaning outlets they may believe to be most ready to parrot the Trump messaging still draw the line at that. All of this is going to matter relatively short term, because every indication is that Trump is champing at the bit to use the military, whether against his internal opponents, wherever and whenever he can concoct a justification to do it, or the use of lethal force by the US military against random individuals in boats off the coast of Venezuela, for example. Both of those testify to Trump's eagerness to use force against any targets he might want to, so long as they're not big enough to put up an actual fight. Also, those amongst America's enemies that can put up a fight, they are following the decline of merit and capability in US forces very carefully indeed. It should be anticipated that whatever weaknesses are detected will be tested and exploited, because that's what actual strongman autocrats do. Those three factors mean that yes, the degradation of US military capabilities will become a factor within the lifetime of Trump's presidency. It won't just be the sort of thing that will wistfully be traced back to this moment by your children's children. And by that time, who knows if there'll be any real journalists or non-MAGA influencers to talk about it anyway.